Hello fellow numismatists and coin enthusiasts. Today we're going to explore two quarters that might be sitting in your pocket change right now, yet could be worth significantly more than 25 cents each. We're diving deep into the 1967 and 1980 USA quarter dollars, coins that many collectors overlook but which hold some surprising secrets and substantial value potential for those in the know. These aren't your typical, rare coin headlines you see everywhere. These are genuine treasures with fascinating backstories that the mainstream collecting community often misses. Let's start our journey with the 1967 quarter dollar, a coin that emerged during one of the most turbulent periods in American coinage history. The year 1967 represents a fascinating transitional period in American coinage production. Following the Coinage Act of 1965, which removed silver from dimes and quarters due to rising silver prices, the U.S. Mint was in full swing producing the new copper-nickel-clad composition. What makes 1967 particularly interesting is that during this year, the U.S. Mint didn't produce any standard mint mark coins for circulation. Instead, they focused on what they called special mint sets, coins struck with specially prepared dies on planchets that received extra attention. These weren't quite proof coins, but they weren't standard circulation strikes either. They occupied a middle ground that has created confusion and opportunity for knowledgeable collectors ever since. The standard 1967 quarter that most people are familiar with features George Washington on the obverse, as designed by John Flanagan, with the familiar image of an eagle on the reverse. These coins were produced in massive quantities at the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mints, but none bore mint marks. This was part of the mint's effort to discourage coin collecting and hoarding during the coin shortage of the mid-1960s. The U.S. Treasury believed that removing mint marks would reduce the incentive for collectors to save coins, thus keeping more in circulation. What they didn't anticipate was how this decision would eventually create rarities that would capture the imagination of collectors decades later. What makes certain 1967 quarters valuable isn't just their historical context, but specific production anomalies and varieties that occurred during this chaotic period at the mint. The most significant of these is what collectors now refer to as the Type II reverse design. In 1967, the mint was still refining the reverse design for the new clad quarters. Some quarters were struck with a slightly modified reverse die that shows distinct differences in the eagle's tail feathers and the lettering. These Type II reverses are much scarcer than their Type I counterparts and can command substantial premiums, especially in higher grades. Another valuable variety from this year is the 1967 SMS, Special Mint Set, quarter in high grades. These coins were struck on specially prepared planchets with polished dies, resulting in surfaces that are more reflective than circulation strikes but not as mirror-like as proof coins. The SMS quarters from 1967 were not meant for public distribution in the same way as regular coins, making high-grade examples particularly desirable. In fact, a 1967 SMS quarter graded SP68, Special Mint State 68, by PCGS sold for an impressive $11,750 at auction in 2019, demonstrating just how valuable these seemingly common quarters can become in top condition. Beyond these specific varieties, condition plays an enormous role in determining the value of 1967 quarters. While circulated examples are generally worth only their face value, uncirculated specimens can bring significant premiums. This is partly because the copper-nickel-clad composition used in these quarters is prone to showing wear and contact marks much more readily than the previous silver alloy. Finding a 1967 quarter in true gem uncirculated condition, MS65 or better, is actually quite challenging, which explains why these coins can command prices ranging from $15 to $50 or more in top grades, compared to their 25-cent face value. One of the most fascinating aspects of the 1967 quarter is the story behind its production. During this period, the U.S. Mint was operating under tremendous pressure to produce enough coins to meet public demand while simultaneously transitioning to the new clad composition. This led to numerous production shortcuts and inconsistencies that have created collecting opportunities for those who know what to look for. For instance, some 1967 quarters show evidence of die cracks, repunched mint marks, even though no mint marks were supposed to appear, and other minor errors that can add significant value to an otherwise common coin. The market for 1967 quarters has evolved considerably over the years. In the 1970s and 1980s, these coins were largely ignored by collectors who were still focused on the earlier silver issues. However, as the collecting community has matured and more attention has been paid to modern coinage, the market for high-grade 1967 quarters has strengthened considerably. Today, serious collectors of the Washington Quarter Series recognize the importance of this transitional year, and they're willing to pay substantial premiums for the finest examples. For those who might have a 1967 quarter in their collection or even in their pocket change, there are several key things to look for. First, examine the coin's overall condition. Even minor wear can significantly reduce value, so look for coins that show full details on Washington's hair and the eagle's feathers. Next, check for any signs of the Type II reverse design, which features sharper details in the eagle's tail feathers and more distinct lettering. Finally, look for any unusual characteristics that might indicate a special striking or error. These could include unusually reflective surfaces, die cracks, or other anomalies that set the coin apart from typical examples. The value range for 1967 quarters varies dramatically based on condition and variety. A typical circulated example might be worth 25 cents to $1, while an uncirculated example in MS-63 condition might fetch $5 to $10. In MS-65, the value jumps to $15 to $25, and in GEM MS-66 condition, these coins can bring $50 to $100 or more. The special mint set examples in SP-68 condition, as mentioned earlier, have sold for thousands of dollars. The Type II reverse varieties command similar premiums, with top-graded examples selling for several hundred to over $1,000 depending on grade. What makes the 1967 quarter particularly appealing to collectors in the 40-50+ age range is that many of us either remember these coins from circulation or may have even saved them as children. Unlike older coins that require significant investment to acquire, 1967 quarters are still accessible enough that with careful searching and a bit of luck, one might find a valuable example in circulation or in an old collection. This combination of nostalgia, accessibility, and potential value makes the 1967 quarter a fascinating coin for both experienced collectors and those just beginning to explore the hobby. As we continue our exploration of valuable quarters that might be hiding in plain sight, let's now turn our attention to another year that produced some exceptional coins, 1980. While the 1967 quarter represents a transitional period in American coinage, the 1980 quarter tells a different story, one of modern minting processes and the unexpected varieties that can emerge even in recent production years. Now, let's shift our focus to the 1980 quarter, a coin born in an era of modern minting that still holds remarkable secrets and surprising value potential for collectors who know where to look. While 1980 might seem too recent to harbor significant rarities, this year produced some of the most sought-after modern quarter varieties, particularly among proof coins and high-grade business strikes. The story of the 1980 quarter is a perfect example of how even recent coinage can yield extraordinary finds for the diligent collector. The year 1980 found the United States Mint fully entrenched in the copper-nickel clad era, having perfected the production techniques introduced in the mid-1960s. Washington quarters were being struck in massive quantities at the Philadelphia, No Mint Mark, Denver, D, and San Francisco, S, 4 proofs, mints. The economy was rebounding, and coin demand was high, leading to substantial production numbers. On the surface, the 1980 quarter appears utterly common, billions were produced, and they circulated freely. Yet, beneath this veneer of commonality lies a fascinating tale of minting errors, condition rarities, and specific varieties that have captivated the collecting community. The most famous and valuable variety from this year is undoubtedly the 1980 S-proof quarter without the S mint mark. This error occurred when a proof die intended for the San Francisco Mint was somehow used without the mint mark being punched into the die. Proof coins are specially made for collectors using polished dies and planchets, struck multiple times to create sharp details and mirror-like fields. They are meticulously quality checked, making the absence of the S mint mark on a 1980 proof quarter an extraordinary and highly sought-after error. Only a handful of these no S proof quarters are known to exist, making them legendary among modern coin collectors. In 2017, one graded PR70 DCAM, Proof 70 Deep Cameo, by PCGS sold for an astounding $35,250 at auction, setting a record for a modern quarter error. Beyond the legendary no S proof, the 1980 quarter offers other avenues of value. High-grade business strikes, particularly those from the Philadelphia Mint, are surprisingly scarce in top condition. While billions were produced, the sheer volume meant coins were handled roughly in bags and during distribution. Finding a 1980 P quarter in true gem uncirculated condition, MS66 or better, is genuinely challenging. These coins often exhibit contact marks, bag marks, or minor imperfections from the mass production process. A 1980 P quarter graded MS67 by PCGS or NGC can command prices ranging from $200 to $500 or more, a significant premium over its face value, reflecting the difficulty of finding pristine examples. The Denver Mint D quarters from 1980 also present interesting collecting opportunities. While more common than the Philadelphia issues in high grades, top-tier 1980 D quarters in MS67 condition still fetch respectable premiums, typically in the $50 to $150 range. The key here is condition. The difference between a common MS63 example worth a few dollars and an MS67 gem worth hundreds can be subtle, requiring careful examination under magnification. Look for full, uninterrupted luster, no distracting marks on Washington's cheek or the eagle's breast, and sharp strike details throughout. What makes the 1980 quarter particularly fascinating is the context of its production. By 1980, the U.S. Mint had largely moved away from the hand-intensive processes of earlier eras. Automation was king, quality control was streamlined, and the focus was on volume. This very efficiency, however, created the conditions for the no S proof error, a small oversight in a large, mechanized system that slipped through the cracks. It's a reminder that even in the age of modern technology, human error and mechanical quirks can still produce numismatic treasures. The story of how these no S proofs escaped the mint is still debated, adding an element of mystery to their allure. For collectors who might have saved proof sets or mint sets from 1980, or who carefully examined their pocket change decades ago, the potential value is significant. Many casual collectors from that era might have stored away proof sets without realizing the potential error within. If you have a 1980 proof set, take a close look at the quarter. Does it lack the S mint mark? If so, you could be holding a coin worth thousands. Even without the error, high-grade examples of the regular proof 1980 S quarter, especially those with deep cameo contrast, strong frosted devices against mirror fields, carry premiums over standard proof set prices. The market for 1980 quarters has evolved significantly. Initially overlooked as too modern, they gained serious attention as the collecting community embraced modern coinage in the 1990s and 2000s. Registry sets, where collectors compete to assemble the finest sets of a particular series, fueled demand for top-graded examples. The discovery and promotion of the no S proof error further elevated the profile of the entire 1980 quarter series. Today, serious Washington quarter collectors recognize the importance of condition and variety for this year, and they actively seek out the finest examples. Identifying valuable 1980 quarters requires attention to detail. For business strikes, focus on condition first. Look for coins with full mint luster, no signs of wear, no dull spots, and no distracting contact marks. Check the strike quality. Are the details on Washington's hair crisp? Are the feathers on the eagle well defined? For proof coins, examine the fields for deep mirror reflectivity and the devices for heavy, frosty cameo contrast. And crucially, for proofs, verify the mint mark. Is it present? Is it clear? The absence of the S on a proof is the jackpot, but even well-struck, cameo examples with the mint mark are desirable. Value ranges for 1980 quarters span a wide spectrum. A typical circulated 1980 P or 1980 D quarter is worth 25 cents. An uncirculated example in MS-63 might bring $1 to $3. In MS-65, values climb to $10 to $20 for the D and $15 to $30 for the P. In MS-66, expect $25 to $50 for the D and $75 to $150 for the scarcer Philadelphia issue. The Pinnacle, MS-67, sees prices jump to $50 to $150 for the Denver Mint and $200 to $500 plus for Philadelphia. Regular proof 1980 S quarters in PR69 DCAM might fetch $20 to $40, while the legendary No S proof in PR70 DCAM is a five-figure coin, with lower grades still commanding thousands. The appeal of the 1980 quarter for the 40-50 plus collector demographic is multifaceted. Many of us were actively collecting or at least aware of coins during this period. Proof sets and mint sets were popular purchases, and checking change was a common habit. The idea that a seemingly ordinary quarter saved decades ago could be worth substantial money today is incredibly compelling. Unlike centuries-old coins requiring significant investment, the 1980 quarter represents a tangible connection to our own collecting past with the potential for significant financial reward. It's a coin that bridges nostalgia and tangible value. So, while the 1967 quarter represents a fascinating transitional period filled with production quirks and overlooked varieties, the 1980 quarter showcases how even the most modern, mass-produced coinage can yield extraordinary rarities and condition rarities. Both coins challenge the assumption that valuable treasures must be ancient or obscure. They prove that significant numismatic value can hide in plain sight, within coins produced within our own lifetimes, waiting to be discovered by knowledgeable collectors who understand their unique stories and characteristics.